Now, in business, Nigeria's scant fiscal resources are in part linked to its oil and gas sector. It is an open secret that crude oil exports account for half of government's revenue and 90% of foreign exchange earnings, leaving state funds vulnerable to the changes in the price of fossil fuels. Output also fluctuates due to poor maintenance and the sabotage of installations in the oil-rich Niger Delta. As Nigeria's oil refineries are mostly colonial-era relics with little or no refining capacity as of today. This has left, and of course also left, Africa's second largest oil producer having to export crude and import refined products. This Saturday, Nigerians are voting in new political leaders. The outgoing executives has had mixed scorecards, but one fact is undeniable: the fact that Nigeria needs more revenue, and taxation seems the low-hanging fruit to use in achieving this. Now, joining me in the news from Abuja is Michael Ango. He's a partner, tax advisory and regulatory services at Andersen, Nigeria. Thanks for joining us. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right. Of course,
happy to be here.
The big question is, of course, how the next government in Nigeria will fix Nigeria's revenue and, of course, fix Nigeria's economy generally. So between increasing tax bracket and the new taxes, which would you urge the next government to focus on in Nigeria?
Well, that's a tough one because from a pure revenue point of view, you would say that just create a new tax or some new taxes, which are easier to collect and, can easily be more enforced. But I think that from a sustainable revenue perspective, you would say, of course, you want to then increase, your tax revenue on the existing, your tax bracket on the existing base. But, from a political economy standpoint, also, when the government comes into power newly, it usually has a honeymoon period, and it could also utilize that period to, introduce a few policies that might be painful, as it were, in the short term. So I think it will be a mix. We have a significant revenue challenge. So any government coming in would look to low-hanging fruits. Of course, the issue of introducing new taxes is a very tricky one because over the last few years, we have introduced a number of earmark taxes, and the industries and the economy itself is pushing back. So, I think from a sustainable perspective, you would say do not introduce any new taxes. What you try to do is to maximize the existing taxes. But like I said, it's going to be a very tough decision for any government that comes in because they would be looking to get revenue as quickly as possible. One way to do that may then be to collapse a number of the existing taxes and then collapse them into one tax, or repeal some tax laws and then introduce some other more effective ones in terms of tax collection.
Well, that's not very likely.
I would say that
if we've apologies, if we've seen or listened to some of the contestants that are coming in, none of them has really spoken about collapsing, taxes. There's a particular candidate that has spoken about increasing the revenue capacity of the average Nigerian, so it's easier to tax them, and it makes more sense to tax them. You can't tax a person who doesn't have anything. So I want you to speak, with regards to that. Do you think that maybe that should be something that, would be or should be focused on instead of increasing the tax bracket or creating new ways to tax Nigerians? Should the next government be thinking about ways to make Nigerians earn more through business and, in every other way?
Absolutely. You can only tax what is there, like you said. And taxes are easier collected in an economy that is doing well, in a prosperous economy, where people are struggling to meet their basic needs, to feed, to pay for their transport or medical needs. Then, of course, taxing them would almost be like trying to squeeze water out of stone. So I think one of the focus of any new government that will be coming in, of course, is to improve the economy. Over the last few years, there have been some challenges in the economy in terms of, the economy has shrunk, businesses have slowed down and all. So there would be, of course, immediate steps needed to be taken to ensure that economic activity takes place and people are able to earn significant revenues. But having said that, these things don't happen overnight. And so the question still comes back to what do you do while you have that incubation period? And that's why I brought up the issue of, the possibility of repealing some of the EMAC taxes that we have, possibly reducing, for example, the company's income tax rate, and then increasing the VAT rate, which again, we still have one of the lowest rates globally. So there would have to be a lot of creativity in terms of how, the fiscal policy is applied to ensure that, of course, the government has revenues to carry out all its promises, because all the candidates have said they are going to do a lot of things, security, infrastructure, and all of that, and these things have to be paid for. So if you're going to use revenues to pay for these things, then you have to find a way within your economy to find those revenues. Otherwise, the option would then be to go out and borrow. And as you know, we're heavily leveraged at the moment as a country.
Absolutely. Well, of course, another thing we'll probably talk about on a later date would be proper use of the monies that are generated from taxation. Because it's not, like people aren't taxed. It's, the questions are, what are these monies being used for? But thanks very much, Michael Ango, for your time this morning. Great to see you, and we'll speak with you again.
Thank you.